Okay, folks, this is take 2 of replicating an original screw thread. If Alan and I are too loud, because we're going to try to shout a little bit, because we don't know if I had my thumb on the microphone, then turn your volume down. Here we go, replicating an original early modern screw thread. And Alan Dewey.
Hello, yes, that's Alan here from Bobbin Boy. Melissa's behind the camera, as you can hear. And what we're talking about now is, what if somebody sends you a screw thread to copy, and it's totally non-standard because it's 200 years old, made by a man in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and he was born in 1753 or 1754, and he lived to be 80 odd years, and he was making spinning wheels for at least 40 odd of those from 1780 to the year he died. So he's got his own tools that he's made as an apprentice. One of those tools is a screw box that would have looked pretty similar to this. And what this screw box does is, it has a cutter inside, there's the cutting blade, and it has a thread form in here, and you put the thread you're going to cut in, and you force it through, and it cuts it as it goes.
How do you do the other side that it screws into?
Thank you. That's how the tap, and there's a wooden tap, and the tap in each case matches each cutting block. Now, he would have just had one of these for each side, and he would have used them throughout his working life. And as he sharpened the tool, it might have changed a little bit, but not very much.
Would his have interchanged with other people, like if he went to another town?
No, that's right, but I just want to talk about this. The chap I'm doing this work for, who's lost attention to, got two wheels by the same maker, both sound and dated, and he's tried this in the other wheel, and it fits, so all he wants is another one of these. What he didn't send was the female part of the block on the mother of all.
Oh, let me, yeah.
There we are.
Okay, hold that. Hold that. I want you to hold that. Leave it just like that and orient it that way.
Right.
I meant where the screw goes in.
And so that, for example, is where the screw would go in, and that moves this backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
This is trapped in the table at the front, and can't come out without taking the peg out. And we'll show you that later. Now then, so basically, first thing we have to do, we're going to copy the thread actually by hand. So you take a bulk of timber, the Susan will say, and I use cherry, Oxford knife if you can get it, and you mark all the length dimensions on the bulk of timber. All the size dimensions you're going to use a pair of calipers, which will give you within 2 or 3 thou exactly the size you want. And this is just a bit of spindle turning, and you can see here I've made an exact copy apart from the screw thread. So the screw thread is very non-standard. It's 4 threads to the inch and not quite 3/4 and not quite 5/8. That's what I can produce with this, and you can see it's nothing like that. So it simply won't do.
Yeah, there we go.
So I've got no alternative but to cut this by hand with a saw and a file and so on. What I did make was a little jig that will help me to draw the lines that form the thread. And so we cut this in. We've got one thing going for us here, and if I spin this round, the thread is still going the same way, 180 degrees. Think about it. So when I put these in, I can start marking with a pencil, and then I mark again, move these round together. I actually put elastic bands on them to make them move together. Mark it together, move it together, mark it, move it, mark it, move it, mark it, until for a little while you end up with a very good approximation of the screw thread. Then you start cutting with a fine tooth saw, cutting about a 16th of an inch all the way around, all the way down the spiral. Then start opening it up with a triangular file until you get a reasonable looking V. Then you can put this back on the lathe between centres, so what the centre holds. Between centres it will run through. You can put the machine on the lowest speed, say 500 RPM, and you can start running the file up the spiral. Check the dimensions with your calipers as you go, see if you're getting anything like the right size as you go through. Checking that you've already checked the outside, and as you go through you check the inside. And here's one I made earlier, somewhere here. Here we are. Here's the finished one, and the size is matched on the groove. And so I've got as good an approximation as I possibly can get, as accurate as possible. But I don't know, I know this will go in both grooves, but I don't know that this will go in either. So how do I check that? Well, as I said, I haven't got the female thread. So what I made was something that would represent the female thread. So what I'm going to do on this one to show you, no, on this one to show you, I want to put some JB weld on this to form the thread, but I don't want to damage the gentleman's property, obviously, it would be very unfair. So I'm going to put a protective sleeve on, made out of a very thin vertical glove, and this will mould itself into the groove and also allow me a little tiny bit of play when I take it off. So I'll pull this down the thread and make sure it goes right into the groove, which it will. Go right into the groove, and I take this is JB weld.
What's it called in England?
Rad weld, call it rad weld.
R-A-D?
Yeah, use it for 16 radius. And what it is, it's a two-part epoxy putty. It's just like putty. It's got one part in the middle in black and one part on the outside in grey. How it doesn't start going up in the tube, I don't know, but they know how to do that. And you mix it together until it all goes black. And you end up with a lump of soft putty. And then you form it round this as best you can without going onto the wood. Form it round, and you end up with something that looks like that.
Let's see if I can get.
You're gonna
There we
wind it
go.
up. You're gonna wind it up, and it will come off because of the. You could always put a little bit of something on there, a bit of oil or something. I didn't want to because it didn't belong to me.
You take this. We've got your prop in front of the camera.
Yeah. Now I can try this back on, make sure that it works, and it's a nice screw thread. It screws on, not too tight, not too flat. Just a nice, and that's going to go in and out and draw that. Another roll back, that's not the right one, of course, that's some other way. And
So that's the original.
yeah, and I did want to say that this chap had made this screw thread all his life. Every other screw turner had his own box that he made, and you can see they're all quite different.
Let me get a close.
There's one there that's quite similar, but it almost certainly wouldn't fit because it's thicker there anyway. So each person, each craftsman had their own screw box, different size screw boxes for different sizes, and that is why they're all different from those days 200 years ago, 250 years ago, 230 years ago, something like that.
So they're not interchangeable.
They're not interchangeable. However, there's my finished piece on there. So here's the finished object. I've copied it as accurate as I can. I've checked it with the calipers. I've done this and I've done that. I've done absolutely everything I can to make it right, and I just need to check with this. It goes onto here. That this goes on here. And now I know that it's going to go into the wheel that the chap's got, and it will operate as required. And that's about it, I think.
Yeah, I want to add something because somebody else got some benefit from this on take one of the video. Here are some tension screws, and they go on normally just your Saxony style double drive wheels, and they're ubiquitous here. The immigrants made them when they got here. Some of them were brought over, but most of them were made by immigrant communities because you make what you know. And so when you get to your new home, you make what you know. But what's the one, aside from the screw threads, which you can see, but the one big difference that I know that you've already noticed on this is that this one has this groove. And I want to discuss that groove briefly because I end up doing this in emails a lot because I'm the email voice of Bob and Boy. If you didn't know that, when you write Dear Alan, you get Dear Melissa. So what happens is this screw goes into the table of the spinning wheel, and you can't see whether it's got a groove or not, but you might not be able to get that screw all the way out. The reason is, usually, unless it's just stuck, pretend that's the table and we've got it tilted towards you. The reason is that what they've done is to take advantage of this groove is they've run a peg in through the table. It's cut off at the top, and what that does, that peg, all you can see on the top of our little, that's a knitting pattern, so God help the people that inherit my knitting patterns, all that you can see is the little peg in the top of the table, the head of the peg, but you can't see what it's doing. What it's doing is it's keeping this screw from backing out, so that when you're turning it, it is actually just turning here, and the ball, so the mother of all, is moving back and forth. So what you want to do, if you need to remove this, is you need to normally flip that table over and tap the little peg out from underneath. Just look for it. You'll see, now that you know it's there, or might be there, look for it, and you'll know whether or not you have to do this. When we were doing, after we finished take one of this, I asked Alan, okay, all very well and good, if you've got two wheels made by the same person and you're missing one tension screw, you're kind of in a plus position whether you knew it or not. What do you do if you don't have the tension screw at all? And so I'm going to let him discuss that, because sometimes people have taken this out because people are great and they take stuff out and they set it aside and then they lose it. So what if this is what they took out after dropping the flyer assembly and breaking it? Then they took this out and they lost this because it looked cool and they forgot what it was. So you got a wheel, it's got a mother of all, it needs a screw thread or a tension screw. What would you do? And I think there are two options, one good and one difficult.
Well, my first idea on this would be to retap this hole with a modern screw thread, a little bit bigger, and then I know that I can use my toolbox to make another tension screw, no problem. However,
how about if you had a purist that said, oh my God, please don't do that?
If the wheel is been handed down through the centuries and so on, and hasn't been changed at all, we can use a little bit of rad weld, JB weld, to press into here to stay half the way round, and then we peel it off just before it's set and take it out, and that gives us an idea on how to make the thread. Now, we're in a plus position with that idea. As long as we get it close, we can trim it down as it goes in, and as it goes in, we'll take it out and put it back on the lathe and trim it down a bit until it goes through. And bear in mind, it only has to be, it's not an engineering thing, it just has to be able to move it backwards and forwards. So it doesn't have to be 80% of the thread form, it just needs to be closed.
Okay, folks, that's it, take two. Hopefully this will also go on YouTube and we won't have to do take 3. If you didn't know it, we've got a YouTube channel called Bobbin Boy, because we're simple that way. And it's all about education. It's not sales. It's not how special we are. It's not that we're artists. What it's called is the part about the making things is called the Woodturner's Apprentice. And we're going to add it to the Woodturner's Apprentice so that we've got a permanent reference on how to do the different things that Alan and I do here in the workshop as production woodturners. So, see you later, and wish us luck with the endless filming. Bye-bye.